Did you know that during the Great Depression, the average family spent 35% of their income on food? Today, we spend just 10%. But what if we could learn from those tough times to save even more? Number 1. Peanut butter soup. Picture this. You're scraping the bottom of your pantry, and all you find is a lonely jar of peanut butter. What would you make? During the Great Depression, resourceful families turned this sticky situation into a surprisingly delicious meal: peanut butter soup. This protein-packed wonder became a lifeline for many. Peanut butter offered a cheap alternative to meat, packing a nutritional punch with its high protein and healthy fats. The basic recipe was simple: peanut butter, milk, and a bit of seasoning. But families got creative, tossing in whatever vegetables they had on hand: onions, carrots, even leftover mashed potatoes. Today, you can give this frugal favorite a modern twist. Try adding a dash of curry powder or a squirt of sriracha for extra flavor. One pot of this hearty soup could feed a family of 4 for less than $5, proving that sometimes the most satisfying meals come from thinking outside the jar. Number 2. Dandelion green salad. While peanut butter soup stretched pantry staples, our next Depression-era dish took frugality to new heights. Ever looked at your lawn and thought, "There's dinner"? Believe it or not, that's exactly what many families did. Let's explore how a common weed became a dietary staple during tough times. Imagine stepping out your back door, basket in hand, ready to harvest dandelions. That's right. During the Great Depression, these sunny yellow flowers weren't just pesky weeds, they were dinner. Families turned to foraging as a way to put free food on the table, and dandelion greens quickly became a popular choice. But don't turn your nose up just yet. These greens are actually packed with nutrients. Rich in vitamins A and C, dandelion greens offer more iron and calcium than spinach. To prepare them, families would wash the greens thoroughly, then boil or sauté them to remove some of the bitterness. This backyard bounty helped stretch tight food budgets during the Depression. A simple dandelion salad might include the greens tossed with a bit of bacon grease, vinegar, and hard-boiled eggs, if they were lucky. It wasn't fancy, but it filled bellies and provided much-needed nutrients. Number 3. Johnny Cakes. From backyard weeds to kitchen staples, Depression-era families got creative with their meals. But one simple recipe stood out for its versatility and rock-bottom cost. Ever wondered how a single bag of cornmeal could feed a family for days? The secret lies in an often overlooked Southern classic: Johnny Cakes. These humble pancakes, also known as hoe cakes, were a lifesaver during tough times. Made with just cornmeal, water, and a pinch of salt, Johnny Cakes became the go-to bread substitute when wheat flour was too pricey. The best part? You could whip them up in minutes on a hot griddle. Families got creative with Johnny Cakes, serving them morning, noon, and night. For breakfast, they'd add a drizzle of syrup if they had it. Lunch might see them paired with beans or vegetables. Dinner? Johnny Cakes could stand in for biscuits or rolls. Talk about a triple threat. Number 4. Mock chicken legs. While Johnny Cakes filled bellies on the cheap, families still craved the comfort of a classic Sunday dinner. But what if we told you their chicken dinner wasn't quite what it seemed? Picture this: a plate of golden brown drumsticks that looked mouth-watering, but held a surprising secret inside. Enter mock chicken legs, the Great Depression's answer to pricey poultry. Clever cooks shaped cheaper cuts of pork or veal to mimic those coveted drumsticks. They'd mold the meat around a stick or bone, creating the illusion of a juicy chicken leg. A quick dip in breadcrumbs, a sizzle in the pan, and voila! Chicken was on the menu. This culinary sleight of hand did more than just fill stomachs. It gave families a taste of normalcy during tough times. Gathering around a plate of familiar-looking chicken offered comfort and a sense of treating themselves, even when the budget was tight. Nowadays, we're seeing a similar trend with plant-based meats. Just like those Depression-era cooks, modern families are finding creative ways to enjoy familiar flavors on a budget. Who knew that those frugal kitchen tricks from the 1930s would still be inspiring us today? Number 5. Creamed peas on toast. From mock chicken to toast? You might think we're pulling your leg, but this next Depression-era dish was no joke when it came to stretching a dollar. Ever wondered how a humble slice of bread and a can of veggies became the ultimate comfort food during America's hardest times? Enter creamed peas on toast, a quick and cheap dinner that saved many a family from going to bed hungry. During the Great Depression, canned vegetables became kitchen heroes. They were cheap, lasted forever, and packed a nutritional punch. Canned peas, in particular, were a favorite, loaded with protein, fiber, and vitamins. The recipe was simple: a basic white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, mixed with canned peas and poured over toast. But don't let the simplicity fool you. This dish was a warm hug on a plate. Families got creative, tossing in whatever they had on hand. Maybe some leftover ham, a sprinkle of herbs, or even a dash of cheese if they were lucky. Number 6. Vegetable pot pie. Creamed peas on toast might have warmed hearts, but another meatless marvel was about to take center stage. What if I told you that during the Great Depression, families found a way to create a meaty dinner without spending a dime on meat? Enter the vegetable pot pie, a dish so clever it might just change how you look at your produce drawer. When times were tough and meat was scarce, families turned to their victory gardens for inspiration. These backyard plots became treasure troves of affordable ingredients: potatoes, carrots, peas, and onions. Whatever was growing became the star of the show. The beauty of vegetable pot pie? It was a chameleon, adapting to whatever veggies were on hand. But what about that flaky crust we all love? Depression-era cooks got creative. With just flour, water, and a bit of lard or butter if they were lucky, they crafted a satisfying top crust that transformed simple vegetables into a comforting meal. It wasn't fancy, but it filled bellies and lifted spirits. Number 7. Beans and rice. Think vegetable pot pie was the ultimate money saver? Hold on to your aprons, folks. We're about to reveal the unsung heroes of Depression-era dining. A pair so perfect, they're still feeding millions around the world today. Can you guess which two humble ingredients became the nutritional powerhouse that got families through their toughest times? Enter beans and rice, the dynamic duo that packed a protein punch without breaking the bank. During the Great Depression, this simple combination became a lifeline for struggling families. But why were these two so special together? It's all about complementary proteins. When you eat beans and rice together, you're getting all the essential amino acids your body needs, just like you would from a juicy steak, but at a fraction of the cost. Families got creative with this basic dish, adding whatever they had on hand to jazz it up. A sprinkle of herbs from the windowsill garden, a dash of hot sauce, or even a few veggie scraps could transform this humble meal into something new and exciting. And the best part? You could make a big batch and eat it for days. This wasn't just an American thing either. Beans and rice have been keeping bellies full in cultures all around the world for centuries. From Latin American gallo pinto to Indian dal and rice, this combo has stood the test of time. Number 8. Rice pudding. Speaking of proud ancestors, they had a clever trick up their sleeves when it came to dessert. Imagine transforming yesterday's leftover rice into today's mouth-watering treat. Sounds impossible. Well, hold on to your sweet tooth, because we're about to reveal the frugal dessert that brought joy to millions during the darkest of times. Enter rice pudding, the Depression-era dessert that turned kitchen scraps into comfort. With sugar as scarce as gold, families got creative with their sweets. Leftover rice became the star of the show, simmered with a splash of milk and just a pinch of precious sugar. It was thrifty, it was tasty, and it made sure not a single grain went to waste. But here's where it gets interesting. Families adapted this simple recipe based on what they had. No milk? No problem. Water would do in a pinch. A handful of raisins or a dash of cinnamon could transform the flavor entirely. Each spoonful was like a warm hug, offering a moment of sweetness in tough times. Number 9. Split pea soup with ham. While rice pudding satisfied sweet cravings, families still needed hearty, nutritious meals to get through tough times. Enter the unsung hero of Depression-era dinners, a soup so filling and flavorful it turned scraps into sustenance. Ready to discover how our grandparents transformed leftovers into liquid gold? Split pea soup with ham became a lifesaver during the Great Depression. Families could stretch a single ham bone into multiple meals, proving that a little ingenuity goes a long way. The magic happened as the soup simmered, with the ham bone releasing its rich flavor and nutrients into the broth. It was like getting a second life out of that Sunday roast. But the real star of the show? Those humble split peas. Packed with protein and fiber, these little green powerhouses kept bellies full without emptying wallets. A bag of split peas could feed a family for days, costing just pennies per serving. Talk about stretching $1. Number 10. Corned beef and potato hash. That waste not, want not spirit didn't stop at soups. Ever wonder how a simple can of meat became the unlikely hero of Depression-era dinners? Get ready to discover the surprising versatility of a pantry staple that saved countless families from going hungry. Enter corned beef hash, the quick and filling meal that stretched budgets and filled bellies. During the Great Depression, canned meats like corned beef became kitchen superstars. Why? They were cheap, lasted forever on the shelf, and packed a protein punch when fresh meat was hard to come by. The beauty of corned beef hash was its simplicity. Families would fry up some chopped potatoes, toss in the canned corned beef, and let it all get crispy in the pan. Even without fancy add-ins, this combo was enough to make a hearty meal. But folks got creative, throwing in whatever veggies they had on hand to make it stretch even further. Here's the real kicker. Corned beef hash wasn't just for dinner. It could show up at any meal of the day. Breakfast? Throw an egg on top. Lunch? Serve it with some bread. Dinner? Add a side of canned vegetables and you're good to go. Talk about a versatile dish. Number 11. Bread dumplings in tomato soup. From canned corned beef to old bread? You might think we've hit rock bottom, but hold on to your aprons. We're about to reveal a Depression-era recipe so clever, it'll make you rethink everything in your bread box. How did families turn a kitchen catastrophe into comfort food? Enter bread dumplings in tomato soup, the ultimate waste-not wonder of the Great Depression. When bread became too stale to eat, resourceful cooks found a way to transform it into a hearty meal. They'd mix day-old bread with milk and sometimes an egg, forming doughy dumplings that breathed new life into what would have been tossed out. These dumplings found a perfect home in a pot of tomato soup. Canned tomatoes were cheap and easy to come by, making this soup a Depression-era staple. The result? A filling, comforting meal that stretched every ingredient to its limit. Imagine biting into one of these dumplings, soft and pillowy, soaking up the rich tomato broth. It wasn't just about filling bellies, it was about creating something delicious from next to nothing. This meal embodied the resourcefulness that got families through the toughest of times. Number 12. Onion soup. While bread dumplings stretched meals, another humble ingredient was about to take center stage. Ever wonder how a single vegetable could transform into a dish so luxurious it's still served in fancy restaurants today? The secret lies in a simple cooking technique that unlocks a world of flavor. Enter onion soup, the budget-friendly meal that packed a flavorful punch during the Great Depression. Onions were cheap and plentiful, making them a go-to for families pinching pennies. But here's where the magic happened. By slowly caramelizing those onions, home cooks created a rich, sweet base that tasted far more expensive than it actually was. The beauty of onion soup was its adaptability. Families would toss in whatever they had on hand to bulk it up. A few chunks of stale bread? Perfect for soaking up that savory broth. A sprinkle of cheese if they were lucky? Even better. It just goes to show how a little creativity can turn the simplest ingredients into something truly special. Today, you can still enjoy this thrifty classic. A homemade pot of onion soup costs just a fraction of what you'd spend on the canned stuff, and it tastes a whole lot better too. Who knew saving money could be so delicious?